Okay, so today I will be answering the question, why were the ingredients in the Three Sister Bowls culturally, biologically, and even spiritually significant to the indigenous cultures that use them? How did their physical environment shape their society and culture? So for some background, the Native Americans had these three crops, corn, beans, and squash, and they would refer to these crops as the Three Sisters. They would grow these crops together as they believed each plant benefited from the other, and this was a traditional agricultural practice among them. So the Three Sister Bowl is a dish that consists of those three crops, and the ingredients that this dish consists of are very important to the Native Americans, as these crops were able to shape their culture, keep a healthy lifestyle, and create interesting stories that would all be deeply rooted in their culture and environment. So culturally, these ingredients were very significant and had a huge impact on the Native Americans. In Lesson 1, Source 1, it states, quote, "Together these plants, corn, beans, and squash, feed the people, feed the land, and feed our imagination, telling us how we might live," end quote. So this just explains how important these crops were, since they did more than just feed people, but had a huge impact on their culture and helped shape their culture. In the article, The Green Corn Ceremony, it states, quote, "The green corn ceremony took place when the first corn ripened. On the first day of the ceremony, everyone gathered in the town square of the host village for the opening," end quote. So this just goes to show how important certain crops were to them, as they held many ceremonies for them, and obviously these ceremonies brought the whole town together, which is also how their culture was able to be shaped through these ingredients. And then because of their environment, they were able to recognize the importance of these crops. And it also states in the article, "The Cherokee Chefs Bringing Back North America's Lost Cuisines," it states, quote, "We've inherited this rich, beautiful history centered in a deep respect for nature and the sustenance it provides," end quote. So this just goes to show how important nature was to them and how deeply rooted it was into their culture. And so because of their environment, they were able to basically be so involved with nature and so involved with these crops. And so the nature and everything is basically what helped shape their culture and everything, and their society. So biologically, these crops were also very important because obviously they are known to be nutritionists and healthy and have just a bunch of benefits. So obviously when combined, they created a healthy diet for the Native Americans. And this was basically all because of their environment, because they were able to easily access these crops. According to the American Yawp in Chapter 1, it states, quote, "There are three crops in particular, corn, beans, and squash, known as the Three Sisters, provided nutritional needs necessary to sustain cities and civilization," end quote. So, obviously, thanks to their environment, they were able to access these crops, which were the ingredients in the dish. And due to this healthy diet, they were able to thrive in their setting and live healthy lives. So while biologically these ingredients were significant, they were also very important spiritually. So the Native Americans were really big on stories, ceremonies, and rituals, and it was just a huge deal for them. And so one of the ceremonies that they celebrated was the salmon ceremony. And in the journal The Fish God Gave Us, it states, "Salmon ceremony interpreted the ritual as a cultural expression of the economic importance." So the Native Americans celebrated certain things like these, like food, because they believed it had something spiritual to do with them. They created stories about these types of food, like not just salmon, but also the crops that are in this dish. They had a story about them, and it's basically why they are called the Three Sisters. And so this just goes to show how important these crops were to them, since they praised them a lot. And in Lesson 1, Source 1, it states, quote, "But they all have one thing in common, and it is that they are all women and that they are all sisters," end quote. So this also goes to show, like, while there were many stories about the three sisters, they just all had this one thing in common, and is that they were all women and that they are all sisters. And so this shows how spiritually significant these ingredients were to them, since they were constantly told as stories. So basically, to summarize everything I just said, the ingredients in the dish, the Three Sister Bowl, were more than just crops to these indigenous people, but they also represented an intense relationship between their culture, biologically, culturally, and spiritually. So as a result of these crops, these people were able to develop a close relationship with their environment, which overall helped shape their culture.